We're getting a clearer picture of how last week's debate is impacting the race between President Trump and Joe Biden. According to polls taken within the last week, the former vice president still holds a commanding lead on the incumbent. Biden's lead ranges from about 8 points nationwide to as many as 16 points in a CNN poll. Keep in mind, these polls don't yet reflect how voters are reacting to the president's COVID-19 diagnosis. Many of them do, however, show Biden as far more trusted to handle the pandemic than the president. Tonight, Vice President Mike Pence will seek to make his case on the president's behalf. He and vice presidential nominee and California Senator Kamala Harris will match up on the debate stage for their first and only showdown of the campaign. I want to bring in Tom Perez in Salt Lake City. He is the chairman of the Democratic National Committee. Tom, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. What message should Senator Harris focus on? Thank you so much. What message should Senator Harris focus on tonight in her only debate appearance of the campaign?
Senator Harris is going to focus like a laser on the crises confronting America: coronavirus, the economic collapse, the civil rights challenges we're confronting, the climate crisis. And what they all have in common is this administration has failed. 210,000 deaths and counting, an economy that is in the tank in ways unseen since the Great Depression. And she's going to, again, present what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are all about, which is building back better, a very concrete plan to address coronavirus, national leadership for a change, listening to the scientists, a plan to build our economy back. This isn't the first time Joe Biden has had to deal with inheriting a mess from a predecessor, and he was a big part of our resurgence in 2009, 2010. And so we're going to talk about these issues because these are the issues that are on people's mind. People are concerned that they're about to lose their health care with the Republicans when we're in the middle of a pandemic. And so health care is undeniably on the ballot, Tanya, in November, and it's frankly on the Supreme Court docket a week after the election. And so these are the issues. The differences couldn't be more stark. And again, this vice president is the person who heads the coronavirus task force. They have been an abject failure, and I'm confident that will be discussed at great length tonight.
Well, something else that many Americans deemed a failure was the last presidential debate. Joe Biden says there shouldn't be another one, though, if the president still has COVID-19. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, we don't want to put anybody in harm's way, and the recklessness of this president in not wearing masks, as you know and have reported, his CDC director said we could save 100,000 lives in the next 100 days if people would just put a mask on. And so the vice president is correct in saying we've got to make sure that that we can have a debate that isn't going to put more people in harm's way. And so I know the vice president wants to have more debates. He looks forward to making his case directly to the American people. And President Trump just interrupted because he wanted to continue to distract. He didn't want to talk about coronavirus, didn't want to talk about the tanking economy, didn't want to talk about all of his failures. The American people want to hear a discussion. They want to hear a serious debate on the issues. That's what Kamala Harris is going to try and do tonight. That's what Joe Biden will continue to try to do.
And, Joe Biden has also pulled all negative campaign ads since the president's coronavirus diagnosis. Should Biden resume those ads, given his lead and given the president's seeming recovery? And what states does the party plan to sink resources in now that we're in the home stretch?
Well, the vice president has continued to travel, and he's been able to travel because he has always taken the necessary precautions. He was in Michigan last Friday. He's been in Florida, and he'll be in Arizona later this week, and I believe Las Vegas as well. And so everywhere he goes, he takes the necessary precautions. Our battlegrounds, continue to expand. We are investing across this country. You see, obviously, the Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and those mid-Atlantic states, Michigan, and then you see the North Carolina, you see Georgia, you see there's a dead heat Senate race in South Carolina, Florida. We're making major investments there. We made additional investments recently in Texas because, again, a dead heat race. And then you continue to move to the west. We have Arizona, where you have Mark Kelly, and you have the vice president doing very, very well there. Iowa is a state where we have a real opportunity to pick up a Senate seat. People across this country are tired of this president. There's chronic Trump fatigue. The coronavirus, we can't fix the economy until we fix the coronavirus. And what people are seeing now is this administration can't even get a handle on the coronavirus within the West Wing of the White House, let alone the entire country. And that's a big reason why our battlegrounds are frankly expanding.
Well, Tom, I want to stick with one of the battleground states, so Florida. Why has Joe Biden not been able to sort of solidify more support among the Latino voters there? I mean, one poll I saw that said among Cuban Americans, their support for Trump has actually gone up since 2016. Why do you think that, the Hispanic Latino voter in Florida has not been more receptive to Joe Biden?
Well, actually, the last poll I saw in Florida of Latino voters had the vice president up by 24 points. It was 56 to 32. And our benchmark for Latino voter engagement is President Obama in 2012. President Obama won a little bit over 70% of the vote, and he won about 60% of the vote in Florida. Florida is a little different than other places in the sense that you have a larger Cuban population. And so in places like Arizona, the last poll I saw there had the vice president up 40 points. I think he was in the mid-60s and on his way to meeting that benchmark that we talked about with Barack Obama in 2012. And, we're continuing our work. I think we're on our way to meet what Barack Obama did in 2012. And what we're doing in Florida is we're having conversations across the Latino community. People share a language, but we have many different experiences in our country of origin. 30% of voters who are Latino in Florida are Puerto Rican, and the president's abject failure post-Maria is absolutely on the minds of voters there. 30% are Cuban, and the vice president was just there a couple days ago, and we will be back there for the debate next week, and we're continuing to make progress. We are talking to Venezuelan voters about this president's failure to provide temporary protected status to Venezuelans. This president's a lot of talk, but not much action. And he seems to be a lot more comfortable hanging out with people like Putin, these authoritarian leaders, than people who are democratically elected. And what Latinos in Florida understand is that Joe Biden can build a coalition, can work with the Organization of American States to build coalitions so that we can improve the lives of people in Venezuela and elsewhere. And so I think in the end of the day, you're going to see Joe Biden and the Latino vote, not just in Florida, but across America. It's going to be a real difference maker. We've made major investments across the country, and I've been very actively involved in that, and I'm really proud of it. And people understand what Donald Trump said about voters, about Latinos, literally the day he announced his candidacy 5 years ago, what he said about Mexicans. People haven't forgotten that. And he has treated the community with chronic disrespect. Just look at the report from the Department of Justice yesterday about the absolutely lawless separation of children from their parents at the border. The Inspector General excoriating the Department of Justice leadership for their misdeeds.
That is a shocking report. We'll be going into that later in the show. But I want to ask you quickly before we run out of time. President Trump, as you know, has taken strains to tie Joe Biden to socialism and Senator Bernie Sanders. Biden, for his part, has distanced himself from Sanders and the more progressive wing of the party, emphasizing how he beat Sanders at last week's debate. That was something that he brought up. We also want to play what Biden had to say about that at an NBC News town hall on Monday. Let's listen.
I look like a socialist. Look, I'm the guy that ran against the socialists. Remember, I got in trouble the whole campaign, 20-some candidates. Joe Biden was too centrist, too moderate, too straightforward. That was Joe Biden. Just look at the record. There's not one single syllable that I've ever said that could lead you to believe that I was a socialist or a communist.
So, Tom, as you know, Bernie Sanders supporters make up a large portion of the Democratic electorate. Do you fear that, Biden risks alienating some of these progressive voters who also need to, come out to the polls in large numbers? They need to be enthusiastic about voting. Is the party doing something specifically to target those voters who were skeptical of Biden, that they need to come out and vote?
One of the vice president's strongest supporters out there on the stump is Senator Sanders. Senator Sanders understands that the platform of the Democratic Party, a platform that we came together around, is a platform that we can all be proud of. And Senator Sanders and others are really, really helpful in this campaign. So when I hear those critiques, again, our unity is our greatest strength, and we are really united. And I would make one more observation about these efforts by Donald Trump to distract. When Congress passed Social Security in the 1930s and passed Medicare and Medicaid in the 1960s, Republican opponents of those provisions said that the Democrats were all about socialism, and Medicare would lead to socialism in America, said Ronald Reagan in the early 60s. This is the oldest trick in the book. Donald Trump can't take on Joe Biden on the merits. Joe Biden wants to make sure that everybody with a pre-existing condition has access to health care. That's hardly socialism. That's good public policy. And the people get it. And these distractions aren't going to work.
All right. Well, Tom Perez, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.